Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Martine Emmons is a transformational life coach who broke free from childhood abuse, sexual trauma, and overcame cancer to become a powerful force of healing and hope for others. Martine describes traumatic events as fierce emotional tsunamis. They can leave impending doom and destructive tidal waves of emotions that hit you when you least expect it. Martine helps her clients dive into the depths of their trauma and pain as she stands fiercely advocating for them to shine a light on those experiences and find the lesson in the pain. She serves as a beacon of hope that guides you to see the strength, lessons, and purpose that can be born from the pain. You can feel alive with purpose again when you awaken your dormant strength, step into your power with a sense of peace, and discover a new wave of hope with the right tools and support. Martine and her guests are here shining their lights today through empowering stories of hardship and transformation to inspire you to find hope and to see that there is a beautiful blue ocean of serenity, happiness, and fulfillment in your future. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome, everyone. The emotions were starting already, and that always happens when I have a special guest. So for those of you who are not familiar with my show, this is where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. Oh, my show is about overcoming, and the guests that I invite on my show are very resilient human beings, and they have had to get themselves back up, and they know it, and I know it, and my goal in this whole show is to show you that you can as well. My guest today, this is emotional for me because I've known her for a long time. We raised our kids together for a number of years before I left the state. So we've known each other for well over 20 years. And wow, we've both been through a lot. And well, without further ado, welcome Evelyn Knight.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I know. I was thinking after we talked yesterday, I was like, we're both different people today than when when we used to have play dates with our children. It's like you and I have both transformed so much.
Yeah. Oh gosh. It's emotional. It's gosh, so many things have happened in these years, and yeah, wow. So tell everybody about you. You have a phenomenal story from even just meeting your husband at 11.
Yes, I met my husband, when I was 11 years old for the first time, and we started dating when I was 15. And ironically, the first time I met him when I was 11, I thought he was crazy. I just thought like, God, there is something wrong with that guy. And then when we crossed paths again when I was 15, the first thing I thought to myself was, I would never date that guy. And he wishes. I mean, I had like that mindset. So yeah, 29 years we were together, all in all. And as you know, he passed away last year. He lost his battle with end-stage kidney disease, which he fought really hard for 3 years. So I mean, I grew up with him 29 years together, and he passed literally 6 months before our 30th anniversary. So yeah, my first year of my life, my adult life without him has just completed. But beyond that, I'm so much more than just a young widow. I am also have actually founded multiple businesses in the childcare arena. I am also a childcare business coach. I am a certified life coach and have degrees in psychology, early childhood education. I'm definitely an overachiever and an overcomer. For sure. I'm a resilient overcomer.
Yes,
for
you
sure.
are. Absolutely. So what would you tell somebody, not someone who there are, and I've had a few guests on here that are, grief is a hard one. And sometimes there's one of my people have talked about is good grief.
Mhm.
There's a lot you can learn from it.
Mhm.
You know that, I know that from losing my mother and both my siblings. That I guess what I'm trying to say with all this is that we have gotten back up. What would you say to someone who has recently lost their spouse, or someone who has lost any family member? And each type of member of your family is a different type of love, so it's a different experience.
It is. It is a different experience. I've lost my father, and ironically, one of the most painful losses I've ever gone through, which I think we downplay a lot, is a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I mean, honestly, when I think of the loss, like as like somebody passing in my life, my husband is by far the number one, my father and my dog. And
Mhm.
the pain, I think a couple things I would say is let yourself feel what you need to feel. You have to let yourself feel it. You can't suppress it, but you also can't let yourself live in it. You have to remember that there is life. It keeps going. And I love stories. One of the things that happened to me about a year before my husband died, I really started looking around at the different people, and I was watching other widows. I knew my husband was going to die about a year before he died. He was not, he didn't qualify for a kidney transplant. And his doctor told us he had a year, and he lived almost a year to the day from when the doctor said he had about a year. And so I kind of just started looking and, and really paying attention. And there was this one widow in particular that I was just kind of, through social media, and we would like message each other here and there, and she would encourage me. And I know my experience was triggering her. And there was actually two different ones that I would message back and forth and I interacted with. But this one in particular, after Ron passed, about 3 weeks later, she sent me a message that really jarred me. And she basically was telling me how his coffee mug, her husband's coffee mug, is still sitting on the counter. His clothes still sitting, how much she misses him, and how much her life is just this whole email basically summarized to me that her life was still on pause. But it was 8 years since her husband passed. 8 years. Her life was on pause.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, I had this other widow that I had been interacting with who it had been 3 years. She had remarried. She was thriving. The pain is still there. It doesn't go away, but her life moved on.
Mm-hmm.
And that day I realized, okay, I have a choice. Either I'm going to sit in this pain for the rest of my life, and I'm going to be like this, where 8 years later, I'm still just in this awful place, or I'm going to come up with a plan, and I'm going to start my life down a trajectory where I heal and I can move on.
Mm-hmm.
And so that day, I was really having a hard time. And granted, it was only 3 weeks. I mean, it was very, very fresh, but I was really scared of life. So I started a letter to myself, and I basically started writing a letter to me. And my intention was to read it in a year. So my intention was I was going to put in an envelope. I'm going to write this letter to myself, and I'm going to read it in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically would write just thanking me for being the person I need to be. And I would think to myself, and it got this detailed, where I would say things like, thank you for taking a shower today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for getting out of bed. And it took me about 6 weeks altogether to write this letter. And when it was time for me to go back to work and face my businesses, and I had this choice. I knew I can sell and I'll be okay for the rest of my life. I'll never have to work a day in my life again.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can basically, just get up and keep moving on with my life.
Uh-huh.
So I finished the letter at that point, and I started writing, thank you for showing up for you. Thank you for not giving up on your businesses and for continuing on. Thank you for showing up for work. Thank you for having fortitude, resilience. And I'll tell you, I read that letter a lot. I mean, it's been the 1 year anniversary last month. And I still read that letter probably every other month. And that is really it was like game changer for me to remind myself who I need to be and to just constantly thank myself for being that person. Even before I took the actions, I thanked myself for doing that. And that was absolute game changer.
That's beautiful. I know that people will write a letter to their like future self and read it in a year, and that could be on any type of situation, whether it's like growing their business or whatever the case. And I remember, and I know this is nothing compared to you, but when the divorce happened for me, and like I said, please, it's not the same. I know that.
Yes.
There was still a grief. There was still a loss. And it was like, okay, well, I think if I didn't have my 3 little humans to take care of, I'm not so sure I would have got back up as quick as I did. Yeah, death of a marriage is very hard as well, just in a different way. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and just keeping going. Like I've mentioned this a few times on the show. Like I love it. I'm not sure if Les Brown started it or Maya Angelou, but both of them talk about, when something bad happens, we may park for a bit, but we do have to remember not to stay parked.
Yes.
When I got cancer, I parked again for a while, but then it's like, all right, let's get that engine going here again and let's go. We have life to live.
We do. So in that case, I give myself due dates. I literally give myself timelines. Like after my husband passed, I gave myself 12 weeks and I knew it was huge. So I gave myself 12 weeks where I said, just do what you need to do, be who you need to be, cry. And I will feel everything. I mean, I will scream, I will cry, I will stay in bed for weeks at a time. I'll let myself, but then when that due date is there, that's it. I can't force myself to snap out of it, but I do force myself to get back to life.
Right. That's amazing. It is. That's amazing by giving that time. And I know I've learned even in all my coach training and all that kind of stuff too. It's like learning to feel, because it's not going to go away if we don't. We've got to sit in our crap. We have got to feel all of it and let it move through us. Absolutely. Otherwise it's going to be there and it's going to come out in a way you sure as heck don't want down the line if you don't.
Yes, I 100% agree. You can't suppress because later on it'll blow up. So it's better to control that release. And even now, like on our anniversary, I took the day off so I could just scream and cry. I took the whole weekend actually just by myself. I got an Airbnb, locked myself in, and I let myself feel the depression of not having that 30 years. And I gave that. But then I knew Monday morning I had to get back to work. I couldn't let it. And I had to show up and be the powerful leader that my teams need me to be. So it's also important to remember that you can't be the powerful leaders, whether it's for your children, your household, whatever, without really taking care of your mental health and letting those things happen.
Yes. Yes. We're going to take a break, but that would be a good topic to go to next about especially women and us taking care of ourselves.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back in just a few. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine. This is where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Evelyn Knight, and we're talking about grief, taking care of ourselves. And so we're going to step into taking care of ourselves, and then we've got another topic here that is, Evelyn reminded me, that really should be talked about as well. So Evelyn, how did you start? Like, you let yourself feel grief of Ronnie's death. How did you take care of yourself besides even just like feeling those things? How did you take care of yourself in this time? Because you still had your sons.
Oh yeah, it was, and that was hard. I think honestly, one of the things I want to talk about for everybody is self-care needs to start now. Even if you're not facing something that I faced, or you didn't lose something, we're all going to be there one day. You're going to go through something that is absolutely life jarring, right?
Mhm.
So if you start, and one of my big mottos in life is being proactive instead of reactive. So one of the things I did is I got into therapy. Like that year, I knew when the doctor told us running was terminal, I decided, okay, I need to start working on this now. I
Mhm.
need to get as ready as I possibly can now.
Right.
I learned that after he died, it's very hard to get ready. I mean, it absolutely 100% helped. That's part of the reason why I knew to write myself a letter, a lot of different things, right? Your brain starts to work in a much more healthy place. So instead of being stuck for 8 years, you can bounce back, right?
Mhm.
So starting now, so I know a lot of the people who listen and follow me. I do mindset videos every Monday. I hear all the time, like, well, yeah, but I'm not there. Like, yes, I know you're not there. That's why you need to do it before you are there. The other thing I did was I stayed in counseling, therapy,
Mhm.
life coaching, whatever it is.
Yep.
You need to do it for yourself. You need to do it. One of the biggest lessons I've learned through this process is you live inside your own little fishbowl and
Mhm.
you can't see what's going on around you. It's really hard to understand and see the big picture. So having somebody come in outside of your world, like a life coach, like
Mhm.
whatever, they get a different view. They have a different perspective. The other thing, again, in my background in neuropsychology, is that our everything you think is based on your personal life experiences.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's nice to have someone come in who has different experiences to shed a different light and different interpretations on things. When I'm helping people through issues, 90% of the time I find that the way they've interpreted something is usually incorrect, like things that cause negative feelings, right? Or negative
Mhm.
thought patterns. They usually have a misinterpretation, or they just saw things in a way that if we just tweaked the narrative you're telling yourself, suddenly things are so much healthier, right? But a
Mhm.
lot of times that takes working with somebody to help you come out of that place, because it's very hard. It's like we live with horse blinders, right? We don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
what's around us,
Mhm.
but somebody else can come in and take those horse blinders off. We need those other perspectives. We need somebody outside our fishbowl to remind us that our reality isn't always reality.
Mhm.
Questioning reality, right? We don't always see those unhealthy patterns in our lives. So that is the first thing I would absolutely say. If you're really struggling with something, get help. It is 100%. I know women out there, the first thing is like, yeah, well, I really can't afford it. I really can't. And one other thing I've learned in life is you will find the money when
Mhm.
you know it's important.
Absolutely.
People who really want something find the money when it's important. And the second thing, you have to know that this is vitally important. There is nothing more important than taking care of you. You cannot be the best mother. You cannot be the best employee, daughter, sister, whatever you
Mhm.
are. If you are not prioritizing your self-care, you cannot show up as the best version of you.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And some of us, it takes, for me, often, the bricks dropping down on my head to realize these things.
Yep.
But yeah, it really wasn't until I got sick that
Yep.
I knew, like, okay.
Yeah. And me too. I did the
Mhm.
same thing. I actually live with a neurological disease, which I will have for the rest of my life because I wasn't practicing self care.
Mhm.
And one thing for people to understand is trauma actually injures your brain. And this is, again, something I learned the hard way. I was my husband's full-time nurse. And again, I
Mhm.
know I counsel people. I do, but a
Mhm.
lot of times we don't do it for ourselves. I was running two companies. I own two companies. I'm running the two companies. I'm my husband's full-time nurse. Of course, I have to be superwoman. I've got to do it by myself. I can't ask for help. So I just ran myself into the ground to the point that now, fast forward a year after his passing, I now have a brain injury due to trauma. And what we don't understand is a lot of times is that your brain is a muscle.
Mhm.
And the more you push it and push it and push it, and it gets to the point where if you're not letting it rest, just like what you do to your muscles, you will tear that muscle. You will
Right.
injure that muscle. And when you look at like MRIs and different things, the structure of your brain actually changes, the physical structure due to traumatic brain injuries. And that's just going through life.
Yeah.
And if you don't give yourself time to heal, you're not going to get better. When my therapist and my neurologist were working together, they basically prescribed me what to me was like a horrific prescription, which some people would love. I was prescribed that I need to take a week off every month and detach. Like they basically said, I need to get away from my house. I need to get away from and detach for a week every month. So kind of like a weekly or a monthly sabbatical, right?
Yeah.
Instead of one long sabbatical. And my initial reaction was like, yeah, no way. I'm a workaholic. So
Right.
like, I have to work. I have this, I've got goals, I've got this, and I'm never going to achieve it.
Right.
So the way it was explained to me, my neurologist and both of them basically said is just imagine if you are running a marathon and you experience muscle atrophy or you break a bone. Are you going to force your leg to keep working when it's literally broken? No, you're not. You're going to nurture it. You're going to wait for it to recover. And then you're going to get back at it. And basically they told me that's what I need for my brain, is that I need to recover my brain. I've been doing that now for a few months. And I can tell you, before I started, I wasn't producing. My company, especially I do consulting and I'm a public speaker. I do a whole bunch of things, but all my contracts were starting to slow down because I was dropping the ball. And I wasn't making deadlines and different things. As soon as I started, after the first week that I really turned off my phone and truly detached and took a real vacation away from, I didn't go on social media for a week, nothing. I came back so refreshed that I started producing again. And it's kind of funny. I now can produce more and higher quality production in 3 weeks of work than I was working the full 4-week month.
Yep.
It's better quality and more is being done. And so now I embrace the week off which next week is my week. I'm so excited. I actually really embrace that now. I embrace that self-care. So for women out there, I know it's hard. It's so hard because you feel like you're being selfish, but actually it's the most selfless thing you can do because you show up better for everybody when you prioritize you.
And if you can do it before you get the lessons like we got.
Yes.
And it's interesting you talk about too, it just pops in my head is when my mom dementia came in before we really knew what was going on with her.
Yeah.
And there was a point where my dad called me, and this was a year after I married Eric and moved to Michigan here. And he's like, I can't handle your mother by myself anymore, and I need you.
Yeah.
And he knew I couldn't move back, but he moved him and my mom here. And we got mom settled in with me, and then he took back off to California to pack up the house. He said he couldn't move literally for a month.
Yeah.
A month.
Yep.
He was so drained of sundowners, of all these things going on that he couldn't do it.
Yep.
And I relate to that. And I know that when I got diagnosed with cancer, it was like, oh, I really have no choice. Like after chemo, it's like, I'm flat down. There's nothing I can do. And I started to appreciate those moments. I had to be forced into it because like you, I'm always going. And now I know, like, okay, if I don't want to cause problems to myself, I need to listen. And we are more productive when we listen.
Yes. Listen to our bodies. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Our bodies will force us to take those brain breaks, whether you like it or not. So you might as well embrace it before your body forces you.
Exactly. Listen to us, everyone. We both had to have it happen the hard way. Learn from us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to take a break and we'll be back. Oh, before we do, Evelyn, where can everybody find you?
Oh, you can find me on social media, Evelyn Knight. I know on TikTok, I'm Evelyn Knight Official. But otherwise on Facebook, Instagram, Evelyn Knight. And if you Google like Evelyn Knight Childcare, my YouTube channel, everything will come up. I also have a podcast. I primarily work with people who own childcare centers, but the Childcare Business Coach podcast. But I do mindset videos every week live on everywhere, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, all over.
Awesome. We'll be right back, everyone. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine. This is where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Evelyn Knight, and we've been talking about, well, everything from taking care of ourselves to grief to losses to so many things. And we touched on the first segment about losses and different types of losses and how, well, ambiguous losses where, somebody might come in and say, well, like I did in the first part of the show, that my loss may not be like yours, but we all go through things. And yes, somebody's may seem, as Evelyn was saying about, it may seem by society's standards worse than yours or whatever, but it's still a loss.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what do you think, Evelyn? Everything from a husband to a parent to a dog, it's hard.
And I'll tell you the story about my dog because it's one of the most impactful experiences of my life, literally. And it gave me a lot of guilt. And this is where I really learned. And when I went to college for psychology, they teach you, there's like a whole segment they teach you about ambiguous loss. But I don't think I really, really absorbed it until I lost my dog. And I used to be a person who lived in a victim's mindset. And I was able to transform that. But at the time, I went to visit my son. It had been his first year in college. I was heartbroken. One of the hardest things a mom goes through is when your children leave you to go to college. And he was 9 hours away. It was heartbreaking, which is also an ambiguous loss, right? So
it is.
I spent 4 days with him. It was just him and I. He had decided to move there to Oregon for a couple of years. And so I knew he wasn't coming home that summer. I spent a few days with him and I was just happy. I was so happy to be with my boy for 4 days. And while I was there, a dog actually broke into my backyard and attacked my little dog. And it was my pug, my little amazing pug. So he was rushed to the hospital. He was in the puppy hospital. I knew he was, and one of my customers actually at my childcare center was one of the head nurses, and she was in charge of my dog. So I was talking to her and she was like, oh, well, he's gonna be fine. We just have to go in. We're gonna put him to sleep so we can basically clean the wound, get him okay, but we'll call you when he wakes up. I was literally driving to the airport to come home after these 4 amazing, perfect days. And I got a phone call from my husband to tell me that he didn't survive. And it's still, like, thinking about it, it's so impactful to me. I still want to tear up when I think about that phone call, that he didn't survive the surgery. And I was heartbroken. I mean, like, I can't even tell you guys, this was, I know it sounds crazy, but it was like up there when I lost my dad. And I just, the pain I felt was so huge and so intense. And I actually told myself that this was a punishment because I was happy for 4 days. I thought, like, because I had had 4 days of just joy and happiness, that I was being punished and that it was my fault my dog died because I'm not supposed to be happy. That is like how big of a victim's mentality that I had at the time, but also my lack of understanding of ambiguous loss. I felt like the pain I was feeling had to be a punishment because it's not normal to feel this much pain over a dog. It's not normal to experience this kind of turmoil over a dog. And kind of like what you were saying is, through your divorce, it was so painful. And then you said, well, I know it's nothing like what you experienced, but it really is. You lost your husband too. We both lost a husband. It might've been different ways. And so I think in our society, we've trained people to compare. We're always in this state of comparison, right? I'm comparing my loss of my dog to the loss of my father. I had a horrible relationship with my dad. He was not a good guy at all, at all. I mean, my dad died a heroin addict on the streets, and he was not in my life for years, right? But in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, when somebody loses a dad, I'm supposed to be, and now here I am comparing what you compared yourself to me. So what ends up happening is we minimize our losses. When my son went away to college, well, he's alive, but he's in college. Why is that so painful? It makes us feel like we don't have a right to feel the pain. So either we beat ourselves up for the pain or we repress the pain. So with ambiguous loss, I want everybody to know that it's okay to feel it. It's okay to own it. It's not to beat yourself up for it. And it can be little things like your kids growing up, right? Or even sending your child to kindergarten. Those ambiguous losses are very, very real, and they add up. Over the years, we have so many of them, but we keep pushing them down and telling ourselves we don't have the right to feel. So by the time we're the age we are now, in our like middle of our lives, so much of it, and there's so much pain inside that we haven't allowed ourselves to feel. So when you get yourself and anytime you find yourself comparing, yeah, but look at what she's going through. Yeah, but look at what, it's not that bad. Don't do that to yourself.
Right.
Your pain is real. Your pain is worthy. And don't ever put yourself in comparison to others, because you're just hurting you. That isn't how you show yourself the love you need.
Right. And that's so important too, because you think about women, men too. I mean, really, men and women, we compare ourselves to someone else who's more successful or whatever else is going on. And what I've learned over the years is I got to compare myself to older me, not everybody else, and not how successful she is compared to me or whatever the case. And I've been doing this as long and I'm not as successful as her. Well, maybe it's not my time yet. It's coming. Yeah, I'm working at it. Yeah.
The other thing on that note is that I've noticed that people either live in the past, the present, or the future. And we're never living in all three in unison, right? And so and I'm guilty of, I live in the past or in the present, the future. I'm always in the future, always in the future. So I forget to be present in the now, and I miss experiences. And I sometimes don't look at how much I have accomplished, right? So I do the same thing where I look at like, okay, I built this, and I've built 2 very successful companies, right? But I do the same thing. I compare myself to this person. I'm like, well, I might have hit 7 figures, but I haven't hit 8. So since I haven't hit 8, I'm not truly successful, right? But then when I hit the 8, am I going to be comparing myself to 9, right? Instead of looking at the fact that I once almost was bankrupt, right? I almost lost my businesses at one point. Instead of praising what I have accomplished and looking at where I am, I'm looking at my future a little bit too much. And that comparison, you're never going to feel like you're enough. And there will never be enough if you're comparing yourself to others. So kind of balance that. Look at the past. Give yourself credit. It's not ego. In our nation, we again, our culture is all so like, oh, that's egotistical. It's okay. You did it. Give yourself that credit. Give yourself that thank you for look at what you've done. Look at how far you've already come. That person we're comparing ourselves to, they might have started out with parents that, had $1 million to fund their dreams. We don't know where they started. So don't compare yourself to others in every aspect of life. And also give yourself credit for how far you've come before you start beating yourself up for where you are today.
Yeah. Celebrate those wins.
Absolutely.
I have learned that. I teach my clients to keep a list of their wins, keep notes of, that other clients or colleagues or your mother, whatever, somebody said something to you that stands out like, oh, okay. You need to look at that on the days when you say, oh, forget it, I'm done.
Yes.
you need to pull up those things
Yes.
when,
And you need to get rid of
yeah,
those labels too.
for sure.
We live within labels that our moms and our dads and our spouses put on us, and we make them self-fulfilling prophecies. We
Mhm.
basically turn them into our truths. And so as important as it is to like list those accomplishments, also list those labels that people have put on you, and then
Mhm.
make a list of why they're not true. That's
Sure.
also very powerful.
Yes, and looking at those beliefs, there are some things, I know I've shared this one before on here that my dad always had the belief of money, never had it, never will.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. And my dad actually, he's fine. He does just fine.
Yeah.
And it's kind of taking inventory of things, thoughts that'll come in your head sometimes. Do I really believe that, or is that just a story I'm telling myself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So important.
It is so important. One of my past mentors, who's no longer my mentor, that's kind of
Mhm.
why I realized one day that there was never enough for her. I mean,
Mm.
she was somebody I followed, I admired so deeply, but she kept hitting these milestones. And when she did, like, it was this point in her life where she was like, once I get here, I'll be happy. I will accomplish the life
Mm.
I've dreamt of. Everything will be great. So she did it, but it wasn't enough. And then she just had to keep upping the bar and upping the bar and upping the bar.
Mhm.
And it just came to realize that's not what I want for my life. It's that
Mhm.
scarcity mentality that there's never, I realized for her, there's never going to be enough. There's no such thing as enough for her. And
Right.
so understanding, like, when it comes to money, what is it that we need just to make us happy? There is a point
Mhm.
where there is enough. There doesn't
Right.
always have to be more.
Absolutely. And everybody's idea of what's enough is different.
Mhm.
Some people might be happy with just more of a relaxed life, take it one vacation
Yeah.
a year. Other people might want to travel more and do things. So it's, what is it for you?
Exactly. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
Society's view of what is enough and what it means to be successful does
Yeah,
not have to be yours. It does not.
exactly.
Just lean into
Yeah,
where you're happy and what brings you your life that joy.
absolutely. And joy is everything, isn't it?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. At the end of the day, yes.
For sure. All right. So again, before we take our our break before the end of the show here, where can everybody find you?
You can actually also find me at www.evelynknightofficial.com. That is probably the easiest place to find me because then it will route you to all of my information.
Excellent. We'll be right back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine. And my guest today is Evelyn Knight, and we are talking about, oh boy, grief, loss, um, transforming our lives, overcoming, getting back up, putting that car back in drive, so many different things. And we want to talk for the rest of the show about purpose. What is your purpose? What drives you in the morning? What gets you up, especially in times of loss, of just situations that just drop you to your knees.
Mhm.
So, Evelyn, what do you think? What was even for yourself? For me, I know in a lot of losses was just one day at a time and minute
Yes.
by minute at some points. How
Yep.
about you?
Yeah, I got to read Ed Milet's book that he just came out with, The Power of One More. Amazing, life-changing. If it's just came out, but it's basically exactly kind of what you said, and it's something I've lived by, but he articulates it beautifully, where a lot of it is just that, just sometimes you just have to just say, okay, I just have to make it one more day. I just have
Mhm.
to make it one more day. And then tomorrow, you're going to say that again. And the next day,
Yeah.
say it again. But one of the most impactful things in my life is the fact that I have a very, very clear vision. And when I
Mhm.
was earlier, I said that a lot of times I live in the future, right?
Mhm.
And that is very true. I've been, even when I was a young mom, I was always very future focused. And the way my mind works and what has ended up really serving me so well is I always look at what do I want the end result to be, right?
Mhm.
And through the process with my husband, it's the same kind of thing. I tell myself, I am the author of my story.
Yes.
I get to choose. Who am I going to end up being? There is always an after, right? And the
Mhm.
problem is as we're going through the storm, we forget and we don't remember that there will be an after. And
Mhm.
so often we let ourselves down. We give up. We don't persevere for ourselves. And then you get to the after and you have nothing left for you.
Mhm.
There's no, and so I've always thought about the after, even as a mom raising my children, right? I've always thought, okay, what is my vision for my children's life? Now, I'm not going to
Mhm.
dictate, I'm not going to say who I want them to grow up to be, but I do know that as a mother, my job was to make sure that I helped raise young men who would actually turn out to be productive, self-sufficient members of
Mhm.
society who were good people, right?
Mhm.
So I was intentional about that. As a business owner, I have a very, very crystal clear mission. My mission is to change the world by making sure that 1 million children are receiving the love, nurturing, and education they need from birth to age 5. That's it. So crystal clear, so intentional, right? And as a wife, it was to make sure that I showed up as a godly wife, the wife that God would want me to be.
Mhm.
Ironically, last night, my youngest son is 18 now, and we were having dinner last night, and he said something to me that was just like, it kind of was like the fruition of my intentionality as a mother. And the word
Mhm.
intentionality is super important here because that is the key.
Mhm.
Knowing your purpose and then living with intentionality, right?
Yeah.
So last night he said, Mom, when I look at my friends and I look at all the people around me, he goes, I just graduated from high school. He goes, and I'm already seeing some of my friends really self-destructing. They're drinking. They think now that they're 18, they don't have to listen to their parents. There's one of his friends just got a DUI. And he said, he goes, you must be really proud of yourself because Bronson and I are really good. He goes, when I look at how the stupid choices these boys are making, and like even some of the girls and the things that they're doing, I can see like how they're ruining their lives. And he goes, so I was thinking about it. Why am I different? And he said, it really just dawned on me. He goes, Mom, you, every night of my childhood, you made sure we ate dinner at the table. And then you sang to me every night before I went to bed. You read books to me every night before I went to bed. He goes, like, when I talked to my other friends, no one parent was so like, they did it here and there, but not every single day. Because like, he goes, you made sure you made me breakfast every morning. You had homemade dinner every day. It was like, and you were working full time. Right? And he asked me last night, he's like, how did you do that? And did you know when you were doing those things, why you were doing them? And I told him, like, absolutely. The men you are today is very intentional. I knew that one day you would be in high school. I knew one day you would be leaving me. And I wanted to make sure that when you did, you were okay, that you had a level head, that I didn't have to worry about you going and getting a DUI. I didn't have to worry about you ending up on meth. And it was that, and that is, I constructed that life of cooking dinner every night, making sure we ate at the table, all of those things, those conversations. One of my favorite authors, Susan Scott, says that you are where you are today as the result of one conversation at a time.
I love
And
that.
it's intentionality, right? So living a life of purpose. When Ron got sick and I really thought being a full-time nurse and running 2 companies was so hard. It was probably equally as hard as losing him. And there were times where I just didn't know how I was going to do it. I really would I would pray and pray and like, God, I can't do this. And I knew I could sell my companies and I could be fine. But I just kept thinking to myself, no, God put me here for a reason. I have a vision. I have to do this. When it was time for me to go back to work. I did not want to go back to work. I was just so heartbroken after losing Ron. And I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to shower. I didn't want to start my podcast back up. I didn't want to do any of it. But I knew I had to, because my purpose and my vision for my life was so crystal clear. My vision was just so in tune that I knew I had no choice. I had to keep going. And so today I am so thankful to myself for not giving up on me, for having that crystal clear vision and knowing what I had to do. So if you don't have a vision yet and you're not going through anything, get one now. And if you are going through anything, really, really journal on what is your purpose, not your children's, not your husband's, not your mom's or your dad's, your purpose.
Yes.
And really lean into that, because an exercise I do with my clients is I ask them to just close their eyes and picture themselves at 80 years old. Picture your ideal place where you want to be. Now imagine you're rocking in a rocking chair on your porch and you're looking over whatever land you want. If it's in New York City, maybe you're looking over a concrete jungle, whatever it is. What are you proud of? What accomplishments is the 80-year-old version of you proud of? And I'm not saying what are you proud of for your children. I don't want you to say like, I'm so proud that my son is a successful whatever, right? No, what did you do that you are proud of, right? What did you bring to this world? And that is your vision. That is where you're going to and then take that the 7 layers deep, right? Ask yourself 7 times, why? And that's where you're going to get to the heart of your purpose here.
Oh, yes. I love that. I do something similar too. And just even visioning every day of where you are. Where are you living? Do you have a lakefront home?
Yes.
You know, are you sitting by the beach? Are you in the desert? Where are you that you feel good? And picture yourself being there and feel the excitement of, oh, for me, it's like waking up to the ocean or like, water.
Yes.
Waking up to that.
Me too. Water.
Yeah. And what am I doing? Oh, for me, it's coaching people. It's, seeing breakthroughs in them. What are you seeing?
Yeah, exactly.
Very important.
Knowing that you're changing lives. Exactly.
Yes. Thank you so much. This has been so awesome.
It has. It's so good to see you and talk to you.
You too. And we got to do it again soon so we can totally catch up.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. And thank you so much, all of you, for being here, taking the time to listen today. And I hope that it was very informative to you. And we will see you next week, every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And again, thank you so much. If you have a story of overcoming, reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Transformation with Martine. Did listening today spark a sense of hope and possibility? Hold on to this feeling and tune in every second and fourth Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific for more inspiring conversations with Martine and her guests. They will show you there is hope, and you are right where you need to be. Martine is dedicated to supporting you right where you are while launching you towards promise, passion, and possibility that leads to the fulfilled life your heart aches for. If you're tired of being stuck, schedule a complimentary consultation with Martine and get on the exciting path towards the life you want to be living. Visit MartineEmmons.com and make your appointment today.